Number 10. Mount Nemrut High. In the mountains of southeastern Turkey, there is a place where giant stone heads sit scattered across a windswept summit, staring out over the landscape in eerie silence. This is Mount Nemrut, one of the most haunting ancient sites ever discovered. Built in the 1st century BC by King Antiochus I of Commagene, the monument was designed as a royal tomb and sacred ceremonial complex. But even after centuries of study, the full meaning and construction of the site continue to raise difficult questions. At the top of the mountain, massive statues of gods, eagles, lions, and the king himself were once arranged in a grand display of divine power. Today, many of those colossal heads lie separated from their bodies, giving the site its unforgettable and almost surreal appearance. The isolation of the location only deepens the mystery. Why would such an ambitious monument be built on a remote mountaintop exposed to brutal weather, far from the comfort and practicality of a major city? Part of the answer lies in symbolism. Antiochus wanted to present himself as more than a ruler. He wanted to stand between worlds, linking Greek and Persian traditions, kingship and divinity, earth and sky. But symbolism alone does not fully explain the scale of the achievement. The stone blocks, the monumental figures, and the artificial burial mound all required remarkable planning and labor in an environment that was anything but easy. And then there is the biggest mystery of all. Despite the grandeur of the tomb complex, the actual burial chamber of Antiochus has never been conclusively found. It may still lie hidden beneath the massive mound of crushed stone that crowns the summit, protected by design and still beyond our reach. If so, then one of antiquity's most dramatic royal resting places has remained sealed for more than 2,000 years, with its greatest secret still locked inside the mountain itself. Number 9. Nan Madol. Far out in the Pacific Ocean, off the eastern shore of the island of Pohnpei, lies a ruined city unlike almost anything else on Earth. Built on a chain of artificial islets connected by narrow canals, Nan Madol looks less like a normal ancient settlement and more like the remains of a lost stone labyrinth rising from the sea. Its dark basalt walls, some of them built from enormous columnar blocks, have made the site one of the most mysterious archaeological places in the world. Nan Madol was once the ceremonial and political center of the Saudeleur dynasty, and its construction was a staggering achievement. The city was built using massive volcanic stones, many transported across difficult terrain and water without metal tools, wheeled vehicles, or the kind of heavy machinery modern people instinctively imagine when they see architecture on this scale. That alone is enough to make the site extraordinary. But what makes it truly unforgettable is the setting. Why build a capital on tiny artificial islands in a coastal swamp, separated by canals like a fortress half-claimed by the ocean? Researchers have proposed practical, political, and ceremonial explanations. Some believe the unusual layout helped centralize elite control and reinforce the sacred authority of the rulers. Others think the watery design had ritual meaning tied to status, isolation, and spiritual power. Those ideas make sense, but they do not erase the sense of impossibility the site still creates. Nan Madol feels too deliberate, too ambitious, and too strange to ever become ordinary. That is why the ruins have inspired legends for generations. Stories tell of supernatural builders, magical transport of stone, and forgotten powers lost to time. Archaeology offers more grounded explanations, but even those leave room for awe. Because whatever the truth may be, Nan Madol proves that the ancient world was capable of creating cities in places and forms that still challenge our imagination. Rising from the water in silent blocks of black stone, it remains one of history's clearest reminders that mystery is sometimes built into the landscape itself. Number 8. Mohenjo-Daro. In the plains of present-day Pakistan lie the ruins of a city that should have been impossible for its time. Mohenjo-Daro, one of the great centers of the Indus Valley civilization, was built more than 4,000 years ago, yet its layout still feels startlingly modern. Streets were arranged in an orderly grid. Buildings were constructed with standardized baked bricks. Homes were connected to sophisticated drainage systems. And throughout the city, there was a level of planning that seemed to reflect not chaos, but design. That is what makes Mohenjo-Daro so unsettling to historians. This was not a primitive settlement slowly stumbling toward urban life. It was a highly organized city with engineering principles that many later societies struggled to match. Covered drains ran beneath the streets. Bathrooms and wells were integrated into homes. Public spaces were carefully defined. Even today, the scale of its urban logic forces one uncomfortable question. How did a civilization so ancient become so advanced, so early? And then there is the deeper mystery. For all its sophistication, the Indus Valley civilization left behind no clearly deciphered written record that fully explains how its cities functioned, how its rulers governed, or why the civilization eventually declined. Mohenjo-Daro feels like a place that should speak clearly to us, but instead it remains partly silent. We can trace the streets, measure the walls, and admire the infrastructure, yet the people themselves still seem just out of reach. That silence is what gives the city its haunting power. Because Mohenjo-Daro does not merely show us an ancient achievement, it reveals a level of urban intelligence that appears long before many traditional historical narratives expect it. And without a fully understood script to guide us, the city stands almost like a message from a civilization sophisticated enough to build for the future, but distant enough that its true voice has nearly disappeared. Number 7. Petra, hidden among the rose-colored cliffs of southern Jordan, lies a city that feels as though it was carved out of legend. Petra is famous for its monumental facades cut directly into the rock, especially the treasury, whose elegant columns and sculpted entrance emerge from the canyon wall with astonishing precision. But the deeper mystery of Petra is not just its beauty. It is how such a city came to exist in one of the harshest landscapes in the region, and how its builders transformed stone, desert, and water into a thriving urban center. Created by the Nabateans, Petra was far more than a collection of tombs and temples. It was a strategic city of trade, engineering, and survival. Its people developed advanced systems to capture, channel, store, and protect water in an environment where water meant life itself. Reservoirs, channels, dams, and hidden conduits allowed the city to flourish in terrain that should have limited it. In that sense, Petra was not only carved into the desert, it was engineered against it. Yet even with all that is known, Petra still resists full explanation. Many of its structures, rituals, and symbolic functions remain debated. The city grew rich by controlling trade routes, but the exact scope of its political and cultural influence still raises questions. And there is something about Petra that continues to unsettle modern visitors. It feels too grand, too refined, and too improbably placed, as if an impossible city had been hidden inside a canyon and revealed only to those who knew where to look. That may be why Petra has never lost its power. It stands as proof that ancient builders were capable not only of creating beauty, but of mastering landscape with extraordinary intelligence. In a place of stone and dryness, they built a city that could endure, adapt, and astonish. And even now, as wind moves through the narrow passageways and shadows climb the carved facades, Petra leaves behind the same lingering impression it always has. Some places feel less like ruins, and more like secrets too large to ever be fully uncovered. Number 6. Sacsayhuaman High, above the city of Cusco in Peru, stands a fortress-like complex whose stones remain among the most astonishing in the ancient world. Sacsayhuaman is famous for its colossal zigzagging walls, built from enormous blocks of stone fitted together with such precision that even a blade can barely slide between them. Some of these stones weigh many tons, yet they were shaped, moved, and placed with a level of accuracy that still feels almost unreal. That precision is what has made the site so enduringly mysterious. The builders did not rely on simple rectangular blocks stacked in easy courses. Instead, they created massive interlocking stones with multiple angles, each one cut to fit perfectly against the others like pieces of a giant puzzle. The result is not only visually stunning, but incredibly resilient. Even earthquakes that damaged later colonial structures left many of these ancient walls standing firm, as if the stones had been designed to move and settle without collapsing. Mainstream archaeology attributes Sacsayhuaman to the Inca, whose engineering abilities were extraordinary and deserve far more credit than older myths once allowed. But even with that recognition, the site still inspires awe because of the practical challenge it represents. How were stones of such size transported across difficult terrain? How were they shaped so precisely without iron tools in the conventional sense? And how did builders coordinate such a monumental project on a mountaintop with such consistency? Perhaps the deepest mystery of Sacsayhuaman is not that it defies explanation, but that its explanation still feels larger than most people are prepared to imagine. It forces us to confront the possibility that ancient engineering was not primitive at all, but highly specialized, highly skilled, and adapted to local materials in ways modern people often underestimate. Standing before those immense walls, one thing becomes impossible to ignore. The ancient world did not need modern machines to create something that still makes modern minds struggle to believe what they are seeing. Number 5, Yonaguni Monument. Off the coast of Yonaguni Island in Japan, beneath the waters of the East China Sea, lies one of the most controversial underwater sites ever discovered. The formation appears as a massive stepped structure of flat terraces, sharp edges, straight lines, and angular surfaces descending into the sea. To some observers, it looks unmistakably like the remains of a submerged monument, perhaps part of an ancient city or ceremonial complex lost beneath rising waters long ago. That possibility is what turned Yonaguni into a global mystery. If the structure were man-made, its implications would be enormous. It could suggest that a large and highly organized site existed in the region at a much earlier period than many conventional timelines would expect, perhaps before the end of the last ice age when sea levels were lower. The idea of an ancient complex, now drowned by the ocean, has fueled endless fascination because it touches one of humanity's oldest fears and oldest myths, that entire worlds can vanish beneath the sea. But Yonaguni remains fiercely debated. Many geologists argue that the monument is a natural rock formation shaped by tectonic activity, fracturing, and erosion. In their view, the straight edges and terraces are striking, but not proof of construction. Others believe human hands may at least have modified a natural formation, enhancing features that already existed. That middle ground keeps the mystery alive because it leaves open the unsettling possibility that nature created the foundation and people later turned it into something meaningful. Whatever the truth, Yonaguni has never stopped provoking wonder. It exists in that dangerous and fascinating space where geology begins to resemble architecture and where the human mind instinctively searches for intention in stone. Looking down at its broad steps and plunging angles beneath the water, it becomes hard not to ask the same question that has followed the site for decades. Are we looking at an illusion of nature, or the submerged outline of a forgotten place history can no longer fully remember? Number 4. Baalbek. In Lebanon's Bekaa Valley stands a site so massive that even its ruins feel oversized for human ambition. Baalbek is famous for its grand Roman temples, towering columns, and monumental stone platforms. But what has drawn endless fascination is not just the beauty of what stands above ground. It is the scale of what lies beneath. Hidden within the foundations are some of the largest stone blocks ever used in ancient construction, including the enormous trilithon stones, each weighing hundreds of tons. That alone is enough to make Baalbek one of the most astonishing places in the ancient world. These are not ordinary building materials. They are colossal blocks of stone cut, moved and placed with a precision that still challenges the imagination. Nearby quarries contain even larger unfinished stones, showing that the builders were working on a scale so extreme it continues to spark debate today. How were such immense blocks transported? How were they lifted and aligned? And why was so much effort invested into foundations of such extraordinary size? Mainstream historians attribute the visible temple complex largely to Roman engineering, and Roman builders were certainly capable of monumental achievements. But Baalbek still leaves an uneasy impression because the raw mass of the stones feels almost excessive, as though the site was designed to project more than power. It was meant to overwhelm. That sense of scale has inspired countless theories over the years, some grounded and some wildly speculative. Yet even the cautious explanations do not erase the essential mystery of the place. Standing among the ruins of Baalbek, the mind keeps returning to the same image, human beings moving mountains one block at a time. Whether the answer lies in lost techniques, extraordinary labor systems, or engineering methods we still underestimate, Baalbek reminds us that the ancient world was capable of working with stone on a level that still feels almost mythic. It is not just a ruin, it is a statement carved into the earth, daring history to explain how something so heavy ever rose at all. Number 3. Pumapunku High, on the Altiplano of Bolivia, near the great site of Tiwanaku, lie the shattered remains of Pumapunku, one of the most puzzling stone complexes in the world. At first glance, it looks like a field of broken blocks scattered across the ground. But the longer you look, the stranger it becomes. Many of the stones are cut with remarkably sharp angles, clean lines, and intricate recessed forms that appear almost machine-made to modern eyes. That is why Pumapunku has become a magnet for mystery. Some of its blocks, especially the famous H-shaped stones, seem to display a level of precision that feels completely at odds with popular assumptions about ancient construction in the Andes. The stone surfaces look intentional, measured, and standardized, as if they were made to fit within a highly controlled architectural system. Even though archaeology provides grounded explanations involving skilled craftsmanship, careful stonework, and centuries of lost building practice, the visual impact of the site still unsettles people the moment they see it. Part of the mystery also comes from fragmentation. Pumapunku is not preserved in a clean, easily readable form. It is broken, displaced, and incomplete, which means we are trying to reconstruct not just a building, but an entire design philosophy from ruins scattered by time. That uncertainty leaves room for theories ranging from advanced ancient engineering to vanished construction techniques that were once common in the region but later disappeared from memory. Yet perhaps the most powerful thing about Pumapunku is that it does not need fantasy to feel extraordinary. Even stripped of speculation, it still reveals a level of stoneworking that most people would never expect from the ancient world. The blocks suggest planning, geometry, and technical confidence of a very high order. And because so much of the original structure is gone, the site keeps one final secret alive. If these are only the surviving fragments, then how impressive must the complete monument once have been? Number 2. Easter Island. In one of the most remote places on Earth, thousands of miles from major continents, a small island in the Pacific holds one of history's most unforgettable sights. Scattered across the landscape of Rapa Nui, better known as Easter Island, stand nearly 900 giant stone figures known as moai. Some face inland, as if watching over the people who once lived there. Others remain unfinished in the quarry where they were carved, frozen in the middle of a process that still fascinates the modern world. The mystery begins with scale and isolation. Many of the moai are enormous, and some weigh dozens of tons. Yet they were carved from volcanic stone, moved across rugged ground and raised upright by a society working on a remote island with limited resources. That alone would be enough to make Easter Island extraordinary. But what gives the site its haunting power is that the statues are not random monuments. They were part of a wider cultural and ceremonial world, whose deeper meanings are still being pieced together. Researchers have developed serious explanations for how the Moai were transported, including the idea that some may have been walked upright using ropes and coordinated movement. Experimental tests have shown that such methods are possible, which makes the achievement no less impressive. If anything, it makes it more remarkable, because it means the builders accomplished one of the ancient world's most iconic feats, not through impossible magic, but through knowledge, planning, and collective effort on a staggering scale. And yet Easter Island still feels larger than its explanations. The statues seem to carry an emotional weight beyond engineering alone, as if they belong to a vanished worldview we can only partially recover. Looking into the blank stone faces of the Moai, it becomes impossible not to wonder what kind of society imagined such monuments, what beliefs gave them meaning, and what happened to the world that raised them from the earth and left them standing in silence. Number 1. Stonehenge. If there is one ancient place that has never stopped challenging the imagination, it is Stonehenge. Rising from the plains of southern England, this circle of standing stones is one of the most famous prehistoric monuments on Earth. At first glance, it appears simple enough, massive stones arranged in a deliberate pattern. But the more closely it is studied, the more extraordinary it becomes. Stonehenge was built in multiple stages over many centuries, beginning more than 4,000 years ago. Some of its stones were transported from astonishing distances, including the smaller bluestones, which are believed to have come from Wales. That means prehistoric communities somehow selected, moved, and positioned huge stones across difficult terrain long before the conveniences of later engineering. The monument also appears aligned with celestial events, especially the movements of the sun, suggesting that it was not only architectural, but symbolic, ritual, and possibly astronomical all at once. That combination is what makes Stonehenge so enduringly mysterious. It is not just the question of how it was built, although that alone is impressive enough. It is the question of why such a place was built at all. Was it a ceremonial center, a burial site, an astronomical calendar, a place of healing, or something that combined all of those roles into a meaning we no longer fully understand? The site has been studied for generations, and each new discovery sharpens some answers while leaving the core enigma intact. Stonehenge takes the number 1 place because it represents the perfect ancient mystery. It is world-famous, heavily studied, and undeniably real, yet it still refuses to become ordinary. Its stones remain fixed in place, but the meaning behind them continues to shift as each generation tries to understand what the monument really was. And perhaps that is what makes Stonehenge the ultimate reminder that some of the greatest achievements of the ancient world are not hidden at all. They are standing in plain sight, and we still cannot say with complete confidence why they were ever built in the first place.